Welcome back to Give Me Credit. I'm J.S. Waldo, author of Mortgage Lending Explained, and our credit guru right here with us is John Mackey, author of Credit Genius. You can find us both on Substack at creditgeniussubstack.com and jswaldo.substack.com. You can find this podcast, Give Me Credit, on both of our Substack pages and on many podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Please like, subscribe, ring that bell, follow along wherever you may be listening or watching. We also invite you to send us your comments and questions. We answer each and every one of them personally. Now today on Give Me Credit, we have joining us again, Mr. Neil Tift. Hi, Neil.
Good morning.
Neil is back for part 2 of our conversation on credit, behavior, algorithms, and the growing influence of data-driven financial systems. In part 1, we explored how modern credit systems no longer simply measure people, they predict them. We talked about behavioral scoring, automation, and the quiet shift from human judgment to algorithmic decision-making. Neil brings a different lens to the table. He's not here to talk about credit scores as numbers, not underwriting as paperwork, or algorithms as harmless technology. He helps us step back and ask the bigger questions. What happens when financial systems judge people through data? What happens when prediction replaces human judgment? And what happens when private companies hold the power to approve, deny, sort, and price people without most consumers even truly understanding the rules? That's why we wanted Neil back. In part 2, we're going to go deeper into the ethics behind these systems: fairness, accountability, surveillance, and the growing role of technology in shaping access to credit, housing, and financial opportunity. This is part 2 with Neil Tift.
Welcome, Neil.
Thank you. Appreciate you inviting me to join you.
Yeah, well, the last time we did this, it was incredible. I don't know if I told you, Neil, but we got over 2,400 responses.
Yep.
Or clicks on the information we sent out through Substack, through Reels, and a variety of other sources. So, but because we're short on time, we like to limit ourselves to 30 minutes.
All right.
That's about the attention span of most people. Let's start off with the questions here. And the first one is what I call the transparency question. Most people do not really understand how credit scores work, yet those scores can affect where they live, what they pay, what opportunities they can access. Is it fair to hold people responsible for rules and systems they were never clearly taught or allowed to fully understand?
My first response was I'd say fairness depends on power. Who has the power to decide, and how does that impact the parties involved in the fairness equation? So I'd say when we have institutions that are based on algorithms, and they're very large institutions with many components and a lot of clout, that the idea of what they consider fair can be driven by greed versus an individual consumer or a family who's looking at trying to gain housing or gain employment, and they need a credit score that's going to allow them to access information and also access opportunities. So I would say trying to define fair depends on the observer. Fair to a corporation might be to their stakeholders. Fair to the family might be, I could lose my housing or I might not get a job. So I'd say it's typically not fair because of the power imbalance of the parties involved.
Yeah, I can see that. We've got debt collection that we throw in the mix here because that's one of my lanes. And debt is often it's often bought and sold like a product, with collection companies having little connection to the original situation. when people's financial struggles become something others can profit from? Can the system still remain fair, or does profit begin to outweigh understanding and humanity?
It becomes impersonal. When you go to that scale, when you buy debt, when you buy mortgages, or you buy medical bills. I mean, I know that, and my observation for the clients that I work with a lot of low and moderate income families. Right now, primarily Native families, but work with other families as well. And it's true. The access that people have is determined, for one, by their clout. And the little guy, the little person, doesn't really have clout unless it's collective. For example, that's where the unions came in for worker safety. Corporations tended to brand it as greed and wanting to only for money, but unions were there for worker safety and for protection from all kinds of ways that they were being taken advantage of. I say it's the same for the consumer. When you look at the consumer and how much clout they have, unless there's a collective clout, no, it's going to be, again, back to that power imbalance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. Neil, many people never truly choose to be part of the credit system because avoiding it can make it difficult.
Yes.
Well, if they avoid it, it can make it difficult to rent, borrow, or even access basic services. So if opting out leads to serious consequences, is participation really a choice, or does it become more of a form of financial pressure?
I would say it's even more than pressure. Again, I don't want to keep doing this power imbalance thing, but I would say yes. When you look at what are the alternative? I mean, a lot of times choice involves alternative. Do I have choice? Alternative A, B, or C. If we limit it to only those who have credit, and then we have the system of credit that is not giving opportunities to people who have no clout. I'm again thinking low and moderate income people, where their debt, their credit card debt, and you look at it, what is like whatever the usury laws are, 29% or something, that people are just paying off the interest, not the principal. I mean, I just think that the system needs to have guardians for people who are being hurt by the system. And at this point, the guardians in the system, their power is being diluted right now in Washington. And that's contributing to more and more. And then you add in AI, which is where people are losing jobs. And then you look at tariffs and the impact, the financial impact of tariffs, where prices are going up and income is level or going down or even losing their jobs. There's a clear need for guardians, for the system to protect those who do not have the protections they need.
Yeah, that actually leads me directly into my next question, Neil. Credit systems often expect people to remain financially steady and consistent, but real life includes the job loss, the illnesses, the emergencies, and the economic instability. That's real life. If the system expects stability in an unstable world, which is where we live right now, is it truly measuring people fairly? Or are the rules themselves disconnected from reality?
I think the expectations that were developed when credit was originally became part of the system, I think our world has changed so much that we have to have new ways of looking at what we expect and new ways of enforcing those who violate it. But I'm talking about the systems that violate it, not the individual. I can see where individually a person loses his or her job, then there's a medical bill, and there's financial instability. And though we know that algorithms are developed by software engineers, I mean, so the software engineer has no connection to the person who's being hurt by the system. There does have to be some accountability by the consumer. I mean, we do have to expect consumers will do what they're called upon to fulfill their obligation. But I think the way that it's shaped now is the obligations are very much in favor of the institutions and not the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up and make some very, very valid points. Negative marks can stay on a credit report for years, even after someone's life and behavior have improved. At what point does tracking risk stop being about accountability and start becoming long-term punishment based more on the past than on the present and predicting the future?
Well, it's clear that again that the what is happening to the consumer is not in his or her to her advantage at all. That we have to look at what we've done in the past and what we've expected of a system that is only based on 1 and 0. The whole computer system. Yes, no. Yes, no. And we need. It's difficult, but we talked earlier about capitalism, and
right.
My preference is capitalism with a conscience. And how do you build in conscience? How do you build in a system that says, yes, we need to have people pay their bills, but we need to also take into account that sometimes we need to have some flexibility in the system. I'm not talking about debt forgiveness. I'm talking about, because when I hear these ads that you can go online and talk to somebody about not paying your taxes, that ticks me off. I'm all for people paying their fair share of the taxes. I don't want somebody coming in and saying, don't pay your taxes and we can get you off the hook. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about capitalism with a conscience, and that is, it's different. Many people might see it as sort of wishy-washy or how to measure it, but I do think there need to be ways to be more creative and move towards systems that allow maybe you build it into the algorithm, but how do you build conscience into algorithms? But
right.
How do you allow for individual problems that people are bringing that are not necessarily due to their own fault? I mean, look, for example, the system wouldn't know if a person quit their job because they didn't want to pay their bill, or they lost their job because they just lost their job. So I don't have answers for these, but one of the idea of ethics is, to me, that ethics should be a thread that runs through everything we do. And I don't usually should people, but I'm saying, what are the professional codes of ethics telling the software engineers? What are the professional code of ethics for those who are debt collectors? Are there codes of ethics because typically we have 3 sources of ethics. We have the professional code of ethics, like where I work in social work, or with therapists. They have a very specific code of ethics for their profession. Then we have the organizational code of ethics, the agency we work for, the company we work for. What is our company code of ethics? And then the third one is, what is our personal code of ethics? And who influenced that? And who shaped our sense of right and wrong? Who shaped our moral compass to say, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad? So I'm coming from an outsider from credit, but I'm coming as a person who tries to help people figure out for themselves. Ethics isn't telling people what to do. Ethics is helping us understand our own moral compass and understanding I need to arrive at the answers that I think are right or wrong. And then how do I apply that in my daily world with my spouse, with my children, with my job, with my community of faith, with my neighbors, whatever those are, and paying our bills. So, like I said, it's I don't know if it's an answer. It's more of another question, but how do we build in that conscience in capitalism?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the problem, right? Because credit systems are designed to measure risk, but they also generate enormous profits for the companies.
Yeah.
So when fairness and profit no longer fully align, which is where I feel like we're at, how much influence does money have over the decision and structure of the system itself?
And that's it. Many times we know it's the bottom line. If we have any working with a company that has shareholders, a lot of times that's their excuse. We have to be accountable to our shareholders. So they can lay off 5,000 of their employees and it benefits their shareholders, but it sure as heck doesn't benefit those 5,000 employees that were laid off. So part of it is priorities. When you're looking at the whole system, is corporate greed the top one? I mean, I know we throw that term around, but again, we have the right to have a return as a shareholder if we invest in something. But we have also a sense of debt of what we owe to other parties that are involved. Is the shareholder the only important element of the final decision? Or do we look at, because typically when we make ethical decisions, first step, left brain, the sequential approach is gather all the facts, then look at the alternatives, then look at the consequences for each of the alternatives, and then look at how those consequences will affect all the stakeholders. Stakeholders are everybody that's involved in that ethical decision. And then you look at, then you decide, okay, these are the consequences. This has the least destructive benefit, the most beneficial outcome for that. And so then they make the decision, and then the final element of it is to evaluate that decision. Did it work? And anytime we make decisions, it's setting a precedent. And so we're always looking at, when we make a major decision, we're setting a precedent. So in the future, do we, using those same elements, those same components, those same questions, do we arrive at the same decision? Or is there an imbalance there? Is there where it favors one over others? We see this, we really see this, in my opinion, with white male privilege. I mean, we see in our country that there's clearly white male privilege and male privilege. When we're working in systems that provide services to families that are maternal privilege, because we have more resources for moms than dads. So any system we look at, we need to look at who has the power and what are the benefits to maintaining that. Because people don't change until there's more benefit to change than this. A person will stop smoking when they see it's more beneficial for me to stop smoking and my lungs clear up and I have more money than to continue smoking. You can apply that in any situation. The system will change when there's more benefit to the change to occur than to continue on doing what you're doing now.
You know, Neil, that's so basic, but it's so profound.
Mm-hmm.
What's the incentive to change?
They've got to feel pain. And I'm not going to belabor it because I'm not an ethical, I'm going to phrase that wrong. I find myself to be ethical, but it's a very difficult area because you're talking about asking questions, and one question leads to another, to another, to another. But I think that's the whole point to humanity. And when we're trying to discover various aspects of life, that's what we do. That's what we should be doing as a society that grows and judges people by a numerical, by definition, a number.
Yep.
There's an ethical response to that. And I'm batting my gums here, belaboring the point, but it's a difficult concept, and that's why we called you on, because we called on you. So but let's move on here, and it's what I call the recovery.
Well, let me add one more thing.
Yeah,
the system needs to look at what's legal. And that the law is the basic. It's the floor, what's allowed and what isn't. So first we have the law. What does the law say is right, is legal and illegal? Then above that, we have the ethical, and you can have a lot of variations in ethical. Legal, there's a basis for it. The courts have determined it, the legislature have determined it.
I'm going to place an argument here. Just because it's legal doesn't make it ethical.
And that's the whole point. And then I said above that, you have the ethical. And there are a lot of more variations in ethical because it's on geography, it's on culture, it's on what generation you were born into. It has to do with gender. It has to do with all of the variations that shape our moral compass. And so, like I said, there's the law, and then there's ethics. And then I mentioned last time, some people make a distinction between ethics and morality. Ethics is secular decision making. Morality, a lot of times, is cultural or religiously based decision making.
Okay, with your degree of expertise, how did you and I ever become friends?
I'm very tolerant.
You
I'm very tolerant. I saw a buddy that needed a place to live because he'd gone through a tough ending of a relationship, and my conscience said, he's my friend, he needs a place to live. I checked it out with my son.
You're right.
I did. I checked it out with my son. I was a single dad at the time, and my son Zach, he really liked you because we liked our sense of humor. So that's why I invited you into our home, is because that's what you do when you see a friend in need.
Yeah. If someone begins making better financial choices, how quickly should the system recognize that improvement, especially when negative information appears almost immediately, while positive change can take much longer to matter? Is that balance truly fair?
Again, the idea of, a lot of times as parents, we tell our kids when they go, that's not fair. Our response is, well, the world isn't fair. I mean, that's a cop out when we say it, but we know deep down it's true. We wish the world were fair. We wish our little part of the world were fair. That's what we want, is we want the parts that affect us to be fair. If I'm treating you fairly and I'm treating my coworkers fairly, I expect that same. So it's a reciprocal relationship. It's back and forth. Yeah. And people who have clout, power, no filter for conscience, that's not part of their equation. And so when we want the world to be fair because we are proud of, I'm driving along and I'm on a freeway and they see somebody, their bump or their directional signal on, I'll slow down and let them in. And sometimes I'll wave them, go ahead, get on. Because especially if it's real busy on the freeway, that's something, it's just something very little, but it's a conscience. You also see people who don't, that's not how they drive, it's an individual decision and they just do what they want to do. So then what is our response? Is our response to say, well, that's okay. Or sometimes when I get angry when I'm driving, my wife will just laugh and then my anger's all gone. Or when I'm frustrated with something, she'll say, imagine that's your mom. I'll go, well, I can't honk at my mom. So it's all our self-talk. A lot of this, what we're talking about is our self-talk. Everybody has self-talk, about everything that we do. And so we look at that when we're angry, when we're lonely, when we're tired, when we're hungry, when we're dealing with feeling somebody is treating us unfairly. What is our self-talk? And the thing is, the system doesn't have self-talk. That's one of the differences. You don't have a corporation. You don't have a credit card company. You don't have ones that pull all the credit together. I don't know what they're called because it's not my field, but there's no self-talk. It's just basically, but as I said, zeros and ones like a computer. Yes or no, right or wrong, good or bad, up or down. And I think we need, it benefits when we all understand our self-talk. Now I'm talking ethics, not necessarily credit, but having worked with fields that try to help empower people who don't have power. I think it's just being able to let people look at that. And then through our self-talk, we examine our coping skills and go, I'm just going to let go of this and move on. Did I go way off course on that one?
No, you're very great to listen to and talk to, Neil. Our audience loves you. We love you.
It's just that, like I said, mine is much more a right brain world where we're all in this together. It's much more cooperative. Mm-hmm. It's much more literal. It's much more, well, I'm from Minnesota, don't you know? And we know in Minnesota that there is such a thing as Minnesota Nice. And
that's right.
We're all in this together. That's the idea. we're all in this together. And if we could get the corporations to see how they could be all in this together with a conscience, which is not easy, but I would say maybe that's the approach. We're all in this together.
I agree with you. So
Absolutely.
now you've heard it piece by piece, not the polished version, but the real structure underneath it. This is a system that tracks behavior over time, expects stability in an unstable world, and often holds on to mistakes longer than it recognizes improvement. As ethics professor Mr. Neil Tift has discussed, the issue is not just whether the system works, but whether a system with this much influence over everyday life operates with enough transparency, fairness, accountability, because this is not just about a number, as Professor just told us. It affects where you live, what you pay, and what opportunity you can access. And when people are measured by a system that they barely understand, they're not just being evaluated, they're being managed.
As,
And
as
Go
Neil
ahead.
just helped explain, the system is not really designed to understand people.
Right.
It's designed to measure, predict, and sort them. Decisions that affect housing, credit, cost, and opportunity are increasingly driven by patterns, algorithms, and institutional systems that most people neither see nor fully understand. The result is a structure that values predictability and efficiency more than context, forgiveness, or human reality. And once you recognize that, the question stops being, how do I play the game better? And becomes, why was the game built this way to begin with? Now, Neil, I had told you I was going to give you the last word on this, and I will acquiesce and give you the mic.
Neil, why don't you start by telling us some of the work that you do?
Okay. Right now, I'm a family resource specialist. I work with Native American fathers and their families. And one of my roles is with an outpatient, IOP, intensive outpatient program. I also train agencies on how to become more father friendly. So my goal, my passion has been helping maternal and child health organizations, family resource centers, Head Start programs, looking at how to help their program become more father friendly and their policies and procedures be more father inclusive. One of my passions is because I'm a birth father, I'm an adoptive father, I'm a foster father, I'm a godfather, and I'm a grandfather. So I try not just to talk the talk, but walk the walk. My other passion is talking ethics. Years ago, I developed placemats, and I call them food for thought. And they're placemat. You're sitting at the dinner table, and it's a universal calendar. And so for the whole month, and you put in the days yourself. And I developed 6 different levels of the placemats. And one of them is for children. What is your favorite color? What is your favorite class? Who is your favorite teacher? But then we get into more ethics. And then I have them for adolescents and I have them for adults. And they pose ethical questions. And the idea I found is that sitting around the dinner table, people want to talk. And sometimes maybe they don't know what to say. Or they have a reclusive grandpa, or they have, somebody. Anyway, so it's food for thought. So you find the question for that date, and then you pose that question. And then I have, like I said, I have them for the dinner table. And then the other one I came up with is thought you go to a wedding reception and everybody's waiting around while they're taking pictures of the couple, and you're sitting there waiting to eat the food, and you can't eat the food till the couple comes in. So I have a set of questions, both secular and Christian, for people sitting at around the reception to ask, for example, how did you meet? Well, they start with those, but then they get into ethical questions. How did your parents meet? What would you say is your most important element of your moral compass? What would you say? It poses questions about fidelity. It poses questions about laws and rules. And the idea is that I find people want to talk about ethics, but sometimes they need permission to do so. So, I'd say between my fatherhood work and the discussion of ethics. Going to be 79 in August. I'm still working full time, still love my job. Still don't want to slow down. My wife is fine with me because she knows these are my two passions. And there are times when we do this work together. She and I've done this for couples, for engaged couples. We've done this for maternal and paternal parenting styles. We've done workshops on girl brain, boy brain. And as I mentioned, that left brain, right brain. And I think understanding some of those ways that we approach problem solving and decision making among families and among our co-workers really can improve the work environment, and we can really make a difference.
Yeah, I have notes here. You've been a key speaker at the social workers, their manual convention. You've done it for healthcare. You've done it recently for a group of doctors. How can people find you, Neil?
You can find me at neiltift, NEILTIFT.com. Very simple. neiltift at yahoo.com.
At yahoo.com. Okay, so I know that you and John go way back. And last time you mentioned something, and I'm sorry, Neil, but you don't get to leave until I hear this story.
I get it.
I would like to know about the brownies.
Okay. My son and I was a single dad for 9 years. I had this big old house in South Minneapolis. John needed a place to live. He moved in. Zach and I would make desserts, and John would come home from work, and when we were around, and he'd say, yeah, you can have some. And then after a while, we noticed that some of our desserts were missing. And so we started hiding the desserts around our house. And the ultimate one was Zach and I.
Did I find everyone? Did I find virtually everyone?
Pretty much, yeah. Yes, almost everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
One was at the neighbor's house. Gotcha. But the ultimate one is Zach had made a big batch of brownies for a special thing, and they were frosted. And we put them in the dryer in the basement. We hid them in the dryer in the basement. And we didn't put clothes on them because it was frosted. And John came home, and when Zach and I went, he'd eaten the middle, the whole center out of the tray of brownies. He didn't eat the crust. He ate it all. And he used his fingers. He didn't even use a spoon. So we sure weren't going to eat the rest of it. So I think I ended up placing it on his bed in his room so he could finish it. But yeah, it was the journey to find the desserts that he didn't make but wanted to eat.
Well, it was fun because there wasn't a spot in that house that you could find it that I couldn't find.
That's true.
You tried, and why I thought to look in the dryer, I have no idea.
That's somebody who wanted a brownie.
Oh, we're not talking one brownie. We're talking
the whole thing.
And I ate out of the middle for a reason.
Because is that the ooey gooey part, or because you didn't want them to touch it?
I'm just going to leave that go because.
Well, again, everyone, this has been Give Me Credit. Please like, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow along. In upcoming episodes, we have even more guests sharing their knowledge of all things credit. You won't want to miss them. And as I stated earlier, please feel free to send us questions, comments. We invite your input on topics, anything you'd like us to cover that would enhance your financial life. We are here for you. And again, thank you, Neil, for joining us. And I want to just repeat again, for anybody who's interested, neiltift at yahoo.com. Definitely has a lot of services he can provide for an organization, for any of the nonprofits he's working for. Please reach out directly to him. He's just been great to have.
And get to him fast because he's old.
I'm proud of it.
There you go. Old dudes rule. We look forward to more conversations with you, Neil. We do. I'm J.S. Waldo, author of Mortgage Lending Explained. This is our credit guru, John Mackey, author of Credit Genius. You can find us both on Substack and follow along there at creditgenius.substack.com and jswaldo.substack.com. Thanks for listening to Give Me Credit. Neil, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed this.
Have a great day, everybody.